Okay, do I have everyone's permission to be recorded?
Yes.
Okay, today we are going to follow the Tier 1 reading routine and plan Unit 3 for 4th grade ELAR. So everyone has their agenda. We've gone ahead and taken the unit assessment, so we'll come back to that in a minute. But I first want to talk about the collaborative team framework. And we are looking at the second question that says, what do your students need to know and be able to do? And the reason why that's our focus is because we're starting at the beginning of a unit, so we need to know what these kids are going to be assessed on. Okay. Now let's look at the unit assessment. So everyone should have a copy of the unit assessment and then the answer key and blueprint. So we're going to talk through what the genre is and then look at the questions. I have starred the ones that are readiness standards. So this first one, Althea Gibson, this is a biography. And she is the first African-American woman to win Wimbledon. Notice there's a timeline.
Yes.
In there, so there's a graphic feature timeline. Okay, and then let's look at question 1. So question 1 is context clues, and it's to help them understand the word unfair. And when I was reading this, where's unfair? It's
Paragraph 7.
Paragraph 7. That first sentence I highlighted because that was my clue to what the word was going to be. Or the definition of the word. Okay. Oh, look at number 2. Number 2 is about the timeline.
That's great.
Yes. Yep. Okay. And then question 3 is starred because this is an essential standard. This is author's purpose.
And this is paragraph 5 and 6.
Yeah. And notice, look at the answer choices: to describe, to explain, to persuade, to share. So it's not our traditional pie.
Yes.
Persuade, inform, entertain. It's describe, explain, persuade, share. So when you're teaching author's purpose, don't just focus on pie. Focus on it. You know, it could be other things. Those verbs right there. Okay. And then 4, which is a short constructed response. That is also an essential standard because they must provide text evidence. And you guys are using the race strategy for that?
Yes.
Okay.
And yesterday we came to know that they have to have only 2 sentences. They answer it and they get the evidence.
For a short constructed response, that's what your training was?
Yes.
Yeah.
So 2 sentences, answer, evidence.
Evidence.
That's easy.
That's
They said
it.
it was as easy as that.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. The Moon, it's a poem. And just some things that I noted when I was reading it is it has the AABB rhyme scheme. Nothing else really stood out to me. It's a pretty short poem. It's only 3 stanzas. Have you guys done poetry yet?
One poem we did.
We've done one poem?
What's that? Was it 5th grade? Maybe not. We have
So
done
you
drama.
haven't done
No,
poetry
we
yet.
usually don't do that until second semester.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was drama. Yeah.
So there is a mentor text that's going to be a poem, and then I believe there's a short reads a poem. So we want to make sure we hit that because poetry is always really hard, and it is on their test. So
Figurative language.
looking at number 5 is a figurative language, and it's that one that's a to select. I know this might seem intuitive, but I always point out. Look at 2. It's bolded. It's capitalized. You have to select 2 answers, right?
So many of them, it's like highlight, circle 2, because so
Yes.
many of them they just won't remember. They'll see
Yes.
an answer and move on.
Yeah. Okay, and then number 6 is 4.3a. It's not an essential standard though, but that's where they're just using a media, which would be, this is like a little definition out of a dictionary to help them decide on the appropriate definition. And this is inline text where they have to like click definition 1, 2, 3, or 4. And I'm not sure, does it let them click multiple?
No.
So they can only select one.
They can
Okay,
only
that's
select
good.
one.
Okay. Number 7, this is also 4.10a text evidence. So what is the poet's main message in The Moon? So that's the poem. So they have to go and find that text evidence those answers. And then 8 is also an essential standard. It is inferencing. And this is our high priority knowledge and skills that Dr. Lowe Miller will be sending out. So 8 is very, 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 very important. And then you obviously have the revise and edit. So remember, revising is an essential standard, editing is not. So question 9 is the essential standard where they have to rewrite the sentence in a clear and effective way. Sentence 5. Okay, is there anything else we want to talk about for this test? I do want to note on the big picture plan that this is a 5-week unit. Our units are typically 6 weeks. Because of Thanksgiving break, map testing, this is a 5-week unit, and you have on the calendar the days that 4th grade will map test.
Yes.
But then we wanted to talk about the assessment. So the district gives you the week after winter break to assess Unit 3. Do you guys prefer to take the test before or after winter break?
Before.
Before. Okay, so let's look at that. If the unit ends on the 20th of December, which is our early release date, that week you also have science map testing, which you said we don't want to test.
No.
We don't want to take a science test and then
And
also
then we
take a
can-
reading test that day.
Yeah.
So what day would you guys like to assess them on?
The next day, Wednesday?
Wednesday,
It's-
December 18th?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so you'll put that in the plans. We'll assess them on that day. And also, because the 19th are class parties, you do your parties in the morning or the afternoon?
Afternoon.
Okay, so if you have some students who didn't finish,
Yes.
They can finish in
you
the
can
morning.
finish, but just make sure and you note that this is the end of the grading period. These tests would have to be graded and put in the grade book for report cards to go home on the 20th. So it is a time crunch, or is it the week after?
It's the week after. So
Okay,
as long
so
as
you
we
have
get it
some
graded,
time.
we have some time to get it graded
Okay,
and put
good.
in.
Okay, so
So
keep
grade
that in.
is-
So the only thing is they have to finish it.
Yes, they just
Yes,
have
they
to
have to
finish
finish it. So grade report cards don't go home till after winter break. You're
Correct.
saying, but nothing after the 20th can count in the second grading period. That's what we're saying.
Okay.
So you can put the grades in,
The
but
students must be completed with their test before they leave for break.
And date the test is the 20th.
Yes.
so when you guys talk about as a team, when you're looking at the 19th and you're talking about your class parties, and you talk to your counterparts in math and science, let them know that you probably will need some time for reading. And I don't know, you think you'll still switch on the 19th?
Probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
We should be
So
able
make
to.
sure that,
Yeah, maybe.
and they're probably wrapping up a math unit too, I assume.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we're good on big
No, they're-
picture plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so Megan's going to type, and then Ira and Kim and I, we're going to be looking at the Tier 1 routine for reading and using our teacher edition. So we're in Module 5, Week 1. And the difference with Tier 1 is, the Tier 1 reading routine is, we're going to kind of step away from our teaching edition. We'll use it to get the mentor text and to help us with foundation skills, vocabulary, small group. But we're really going to focus on TEKS by genre and following that routine, okay?
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to put this aside. You need this document now. The Tier 1 routine.
Yes.
Okay. So let's go over what the Tier 1 routine is. And so you will use one text all week. So we'll focus on the big text from that week. And then it goes day 1 through 5. So day 1, you will focus on making predictions, making connections, and generating questions. A lot of that is just done naturally in teaching, right? Like you make predictions if you do a book walk. We're making predictions about what we think it's about. We're going to make connections to it. We're going to generate questions. We haven't read the text yet, right? We're just setting the purpose for it. Day 2 is explicitly teaching the instruction, the vocabulary for that text. And so you would do a vocabulary lesson with that that day. And then day 3, it says focus on genre-specific TEKS with a written response. Day 4, which is Thursday, will focus on a non-genre specific TEK with a written response. And then day 5, you write more. So you're going to take either day 3 or 4 and you're going to extend it into an extended constructed response. And it does say typewriting on there. They do want them typing it. by adding some more text evidence. Okay? I'm sorry, and to go back to day 2 is when you read the text. So on Tuesdays, you read the text when you do the vocabulary lesson.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
We had discussed at a previous meeting that the students need to be doing more writing by hand.
Mm-hmm.
So should they do the short response by hand and then Friday when they extend, then type it in?
Yeah, because if they're writing by hand and then it says Friday they're going to type, all they're doing is taking what they wrote by hand, putting in a document, and then adding more text evidence to it. So I think that's
I
appropriate.
think their planning is on handwritten,
Mhm.
and then final copy with evidence is a
Yes.
document.
Yes.
Okay.
Because this one says, look at written responses, and then
Yeah.
you see on day 5 it says typing.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
we found something out in the HMH that you can actually create your own ECR, so we can have it digital through the HMH program.
Okay, so I think when we get to Friday, since you guys did the training on ECRs, let's just type in ECR and let's come back to that after we finish planning the unit, because I think that's going to take a little more time to dive into and create the question for that. Okay, are you guys ready?
Yep.
Okay, so looking at week 1, and I put in here that the mentor text is the Beatles were fab. That is the larger text for that week, and it is a biography, which is perfect because our assessment is a biography.
Yeah.
So we'll focus on that. So day 1 is going to be predictions, making connections, and generating questions. And I know that's a lot of teaks in one, but it's very, like, we're just doing a book walk, right? We're going to look at the story. We're going to make predictions. What do we think it's about? You know, I'm not familiar with the story. Is this about the band, the Beatles?
Yes.
So some kids might know the Beatles. You know, I would even like play a song
I've
or
played songs.
something like that to kind of, you know, if their parents listen to it or grandparents, that might trigger some background knowledge there. So making predictions, making connections, and then have them generate questions, and those questions can be in their reading spiral, right? What questions do you have? Like, you have not read the text yet. So that's kind of beautiful about Monday is you haven't read it yet. You're just doing a book walk. You're just looking at it. You're making predictions. You're talking about it. What connections, you know, like I would say something like my stepmom, she went to a Beatles concert when, you know, she was younger or something like that. So very easy routine on Monday. We do need to write our learning target for that. And since it is 3 teaks, it's kind of we're combining all of them. So I would say, and then you guys can kind of bounce off of that. I can make predictions, connections, and generate questions. And even though you are going to have them write in their spiral, I think they should be talking with them. So let's, by discussing or sharing with a partner, something like that. And then we're going to use that for every single Monday. That's going to be our learning target every single Monday, okay? So are we good with that?
Yes.
Okay, so then Tuesday is explicit vocabulary instruction. And I'm trying to look at the vocabulary words right here. This week's vocabulary words. It's on
dignified and all this.
75. Okay. Let's go to where there's a vocabulary. Play, perform. Okay, so there's all those you guys use the vocabulary cards from HMH.
Yes.
So I would do that with this lesson. I would explicitly teach the vocabulary first before I read the story, so that they understand the vocabulary. So let's write our I can statement with vocabulary, and then we'll talk about reading the text after that. So I can, let's look where this vocabulary is.
They talked about it in the ECR that the students need to be using the vocabulary that we pull out in their ECR as well.
Yes, yes. Because I would want them, as you're teaching them, I would want them putting this in their reading journal. Or annotating in their book. So that's something that can be our success criteria.
Yeah, so we do vocab words with their part of speech and definition all the time in our notebooks.
What is, you know what? I'm going to look at the vocabulary, what it says here. I can use context within and beyond a sentence to determine the relevant meaning of a word. So I can use context to determine the meaning of an unfamiliar word by writing in my reading spiral or whatever you're going to use. Okay? And that's going to be your learning target every Tuesday. Right? So you're gonna explicitly teach the vocabulary. And then it says here, you can read aloud. I always read the text aloud to my kids because I modeled my thinking as I was reading. And you could come back to those predictions that you made on Monday. You could come back to those connections that you made on Monday or answer those questions that they generated on Monday. But it also says that you can assign it in HMH for the students to read or listen to independently or in a group. So what do you guys prefer? You know your classes.
So
do you prefer to read aloud? Have them do it
I do it
independently?
multiple times as a whole class, then with a partner, and then some of like kids, they listen to it on their own. Yeah.
It's good to like model the thinking aloud and then maybe in stations have them listen to it again.
Yes.
Or something like say
one
here
of the
twice.
one day station is to reread the text with a partner, and then I have some kids who would like to listen to
Like to listen to it. Yeah.
I've discovered, as you and I discussed at a previous observation, that my first and second blocks have a different learning style than my third block. And so first and second block, I found that they do really well when I pull them up front and I put the HMH read aloud under when they have their books. And we use the in-text box where we type in their predictions and then we stop periodically. But my third block class, they need a totally different approach. That bores them. They're not interested.
They'll probably want to like partner read or read independently.
Yes.
Yes. So that's how you would adjust for your blocks is do something different for your third block.
And it's also the end of the day. I have observed that they always like if there is a test or anything, end of the day so hard for them after playing outside.
It is, and it's my largest class. So there's a lot of tired, busy people in there.
What are you typing? So you typed the vocabulary objective, and then are you writing read whole text or students read independently or in a group?
Yes.
Okay.
One thing that we might not necessarily change the typing, but need to point out to the students, depending on the vocabulary that week, there may be some vocabulary that are multiple meaning words that they might be familiar with the word, but they might be familiar with it in a different context. And so point out that not only do we find unfamiliar words, but words that have more than one meaning.
And that could be a station, like vocabulary station, that day too. Okay. Are you ready for us to move on, Megan?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So we will reuse that learning target too. Once we get through week 1, it goes a lot faster because we don't have to write learning targets over and over again. We're just going to look at the text. Okay, so day 3 is a focus on genre-specific teaks, which is teaks from the multiple genre strand. So if you come down to, it's a very small little section underneath response skills. And I'm sorry, it's probably upside down on the other side. So we are in a biography, which is, I guess they're calling a biography would be informational.
Yeah.
But sometimes they call it literary. But so underneath informational, and then look here, recognize characteristics and structures of informational text, including central idea. That one's highlighted because that's a
High priority.
high priority teak. So I think we could, that would be appropriate because why did they write this? And I think they stated right in the very beginning it's because she's the first African American to win Wimbledon. So 4.9 DI. And then you could say, I can recognize characteristics and structures of put biography, not informational text. And then how do you guys want them to do that? So if you've read the story, how are you going to know that they know But this is also could be chronological order.
Yeah,
wouldn't
because
this-
biographies are
biographies go
very
in
big on
chronological order
order,
too, because
yes.
it's going from like the beginning of her life to the end of her life.
It also gives us a chance that they can create their own timeline, which is what they have on their test.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good.
So we could use that as the criteria by creating a timeline of her life.
Mm-hmm.
That would
I can
help
recognize
them.
characteristics and structures of a biography
And
by
that would support them in social studies as well as
creating
Yes.
a timeline of the
Now,
Beatles' life.
This is the day, of the story here, not the one on this test. This is the day where we will have to rewrite the T because it's a genre, or the learning target because it's genre specific. Okay, so now we're going to move to day 4, which is Thursday, and this is a non-genre specific TEAC. And this is under comprehension, response skills, or author's purpose. So there's a lot more to look at, but knowing your students, knowing their data, what do you think they need to work on?
Author's purpose.
Author's purpose.
Mine are pretty strong with author's purpose. Let's see here.
So there's author's purpose, there's text evidence, which kind of goes together. Because we always want them providing text evidence, or there's making connections, inferencing.
I don't know about your classes here, but my class is really struggling with choosing which information is relevant as evidence. They just want to throw something in there that if it's in the story, it must be the answer. And
No,
it's like,
my
that
class
doesn't have
is,
anything to do with the question.
my class is pretty good with getting the evidence. Even though their answer is wrong, they will support it.
Well,
with,
that's
like,
what I'm saying.
If they're saying the text structure is this, compare and contrast, they will get that part of the story.
That's
From
true.
there.
Well,
Mine
but
are
that
doing
might be a
that.
good lesson to have though, because on Wednesday you have them identifying the text structure, which is in chronological order, and then what evidence do you have the next day?
Yeah.
So let's do a response skill, 4.7C. I can use text evidence to support the text structure by. And how do you want them doing it? Do you want them writing
By
it,
highlighting.
highlighting,
Highlighting the
or
text.
annotating
Yeah.
in the book?
How about highlighting and annotating?
I can
Mhm.
support.
Because sometimes they highlight for a variety of purposes, and if you use different colors, they forget why
Why-
they
Yeah.
highlighted it.
Yes.
I can support the text structure.
I can provide, or I can use text evidence to support the text structure or the structure of the text by annotating in my book or highlighting in my book.
While I'm thinking about it, next year we might want to request that they have multicolored highlighters so that we could do color as with a purpose.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
And then for Friday, just write ECR, and we said we were going to table that and come back to them, because what you're going to do is you're going to take either day 3 or 4 and elaborate on that. So I think what we just did is perfect to elaborate on, but so that we don't spend too much time, we'll come back to Friday. Okay, so now we're going to move to week 2.
Monday.
Copy the exact same learning target.
Yep.
And week 2 is let's dance around the world. Now they have 2. They provided a video, but then they also provided informational text. That video can always be put in a small group or used at guided reading. But let's focus on let's dance around the world. It's an informational text. And you know what? I would almost say that, so Monday, same exact learning target. We're going to focus on making predictions, making connections, generating questions. And I would have them do the same. I liked having my kids in a routine. So like if we were going to, day 1, we were always writing in our reading spiral, right? They knew that that's what we were going to do on Monday. And then Tuesday is the explicit vocabulary instruction. And that's when you're going to read the text or read it independently. And what did we have them doing with the vocabulary? What was the success criteria?
So they write about they use context clues to just,
And then we have them by writing in their
yeah.
By writing in their
They
book.
journal-
Yes.
journals.
yes, okay. And
I would
encourage kids to
actually-
draw pictures too.
Yes.
Because they need to draw pictures.
I would actually like them to put the definition they decide on, because sometimes, not just children, we can reason logically to the wrong conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't just want their text evidence, I want to be able to see that, did
Mhm.
you understand what the meaning of this word in this context was?
There is
Maybe a
good
sentence
vocabulary
down.
practice in HMH. You know how like first they have to like match the definition, then they do something. It's like 3 parts, and then they use it in their own. That's a good station work
That would be
too.
good.
Mm-hmm.
I
You
also
can
did
have
a-
you done that before? Assigned it to them in HMH, the vocabulary practice.
I have
their
mostly
interactive
done
vocabulary.
the skills packet as a vocab from Know It, Show It.
Mm-hmm.
I get those like you have to put it in a sentence or how say yes or no and then explain.
Mm-hmm.
So I have done that kind of vocab.
Look at the interactive
Sounds
vocabulary in HMH too,
Okay.
and that way you can kind of like vary it up each week. How you have them practicing the
Yeah.
vocabulary, so it's
Yeah.
not the same thing. Okay, so then genre specific. Since this is also an informational text, we're gonna look at. I don't know the story. Let's dance around the world.
I don't know either.
I
I
haven't
don't
read it
know.
yet.
Okay. Let's see if we can see a picture of it.
I have my book if you want to look at it.
Yeah, look at my child book in the other room. I don't think it's even in here.
Genre is informational.
Okay, so it says that if you look at the very beginning, it'll kind of give you like a purpose for Let's Dance Around the World. So students will learn to recognize the features of informational text, monitor and clarify, identify, compare. Oh, this is a compare and contrast. So I think we can use the same TEAC 4.9 DI, it's recognized characteristics, but because now we're not doing chronological order, now we're doing compare and contrast.
Okay.
So even though it's the same TEAC, it's a different text structure.
Mhm.
So I would just copy what you did for Wednesday.
I can come. Let me see. Yeah, I can recognize characteristics and structures of a.
Informational text by, and so this one, and I maybe like in parentheses put compare and contrast. This is a different one.
By comparing and contrasting.
Well, they're not going to compare and contrast. They're going to, how will you know that they know it's compare and contrast?
They're
Like what
going
we have
Identify it.
Mhm.
as compare and
in the
contrast.
text. Yes.
Okay. So they're gonna identify the text structure
Mm-hmm.
as compare and contrast.
Yes. Okay, and then day 4 is non-genre specific. I kind of liked the author's purpose one for this. Because I think they're comparing different dances from around the world.
Yes,
So like,
yes.
why did the author write this? To compare different dances from around the world. So that's 4.10a.
That's true, because some of them might want to automatically think it's entertainment because they think of dancing as fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so
And-
they would have to go to text evidence as opposed to personal experience.
Mhm.
And for the unit test, where they have the New Year from all the countries,
Oh, okay.
they remember we did the unit test, the second part. They didn't do a good job
Mhm.
of like why author included this detail in there.
They were really confused with the details and the main idea on that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, did you get Thursday down? I can explain the author's purpose. And then how do you want them to show that they know that? What's the success criteria going to be? Remember, they can read, they can write, they can talk.
They can talk. They can discuss
well-
with the partner.
If we're gonna pull from and create an ECR based on either Wednesdays or Thursdays, which is comparing and contrasting, I think that would help since they talked yesterday that they write about it today.
Yes.
Okay,
That's
so
a good
writing or writing
In-
a sentence or something like
In
that.
their
Writing a
reading journal.
sentence, and then ECR for Friday.
Got it.
Okay, week 3. Oh, I think week 3 is the poem, right?
Yes.
Yes.
The art
The
of poetry.
Yes.
The art of poetry. which is the text for the whole week. So there's no little text or short read this
No
week.
short read.
No short read. So in these poems, students will learn to visualize details, recognize structural elements of poetry, gain exposure to figurative language, and recognize themes. So that's the purpose for reading this. All right,
So Monday can be just element of poetry because this is the first time they are getting introduced to poetry in 4th grade.
That is true.
okay.
So-
So I can identify the elements of poetry by annotating the text.
Yeah, and we can give them anchor charts for
Mm-hmm. And then day 2, explicit vocabulary. Like I wouldn't read the poem. You're just going to talk about the elements of poetry.
Yes.
And I think it's multiple poems in here. And then Tuesday, explicit vocabulary instruction. Wednesday, so while Megan is typing that, Tuesday, let's do genre specific. So look underneath poetry.
Got it.
Maggie, can I get your iPad book?
Yeah. You know what I like is, okay, that's genre specific. So we're trying to do something that we are on genre specific. So we're looking
Yes.
under multiple strands. So analyze plot elements, including the rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. For poetry?
So poetry is
Unless it's a.
Maybe that's not what about theme? I can infer basic themes.
yeah.
Yeah, because
yes.
that's one
Okay,
of the text
yes.
evidence that we need
So
for the text.
4.8a, I can infer the theme of the poem by talking to my partner.
Yeah.
Yeah, talking to my partner.
Yeah, looking at these different poems, I'm not sure exactly where we fit it in, but this would be a great one, a great section to do jigsaw, where different groups can take a poem and then teach either another group or the rest of the class about the poem they
Yeah.
researched.
Okay, and then Thursday is non-genre specific. So that's either going to be response skills, comprehension.
Let's see comprehension this time.
Generate questions. So they're doing. What
Like
about
the
making
infancy?
making connections? Since we didn't do that on Monday, they could make connections
Personal, okay.
to one of the poems.
To make connections to personal experiences.
So 4.6e, make connections.
Maybe also maybe they could illustrate their connection.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what does this
So why don't
remind
we
you
do
of?
that? Make a connection to, because it's multiple poems, so maybe let them choose one.
Okay.
So I can make connections to a
By-
poem by illustrating.
Yes, not illustrate the poem, but illustrate your
The
connection.
connection.
Yes.
How do you?
You
Yeah.
don't want them to copy a picture. You want
No.
them to draw their own connection.
Okay, so, and then Friday we'll do ECR. We will come back to that. So now let's move on to, we're in week 4,
That is
which is module 6, week
week
1.
one.
And we have reading and math that week.
Okay, so what does that look like for you guys? You give them more time when they take their reading, and so we probably would not have a lesson then on the 10th for reading, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
we do a to-do list.
And then what about on the 12th when they take the map test?
The first block, our homeroom, won't have the same amount of time.
Okay, so then I think this week we maybe focus on 3 lessons.
Yes.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Okay, so maybe we cut out the ECR that
Yes.
week,
Mm-hmm.
and let's see what the story
Mariana
is first. Oh, it's an informational text. Okay, so Mariana Trench, informational text. I definitely think you still have to explicitly teach vocabulary, but I would put that on Monday.
Yeah, instead of having
And do the
the
whole
connection.
read on Monday since you have a shortened week. So copy the week before Tuesday onto Monday. So you'll do that on Monday.
Mhm.
We won't have a lesson on Tuesday because you'll have map testing. And then Wednesday, I think it should still be a genre specific. And since this is informational, we're going to be under multiple genres. Text structure. I think we should focus, or do you want to do, so this is genre specific. So it's either, the essential standard is, I think it should be central idea.
That's what I was.
And then we could do
thinking.
text evidence on Friday.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I can recognize the central idea, the informational text by. So how do you want them to do that? You just circle
I
it
like
in the
to do-
book.
How about doing a circle map where they put the main idea in the middle and 3 details on how to
And then
work.
you could say,
And
so
that
let
could
them
be in their reading
identify the main idea on Wednesday, and then
Then
Friday
add
they
the
come back to
details.
their concept map and add the details that support it.
Yes.
You got that, Megan?
By creating a circle map. Got it.
And then Friday would be non-genre specific, so it would be I can. It's called, we call them key details, right? When we
Yeah,
get
key
central
de-
idea.
Yeah, key detail.
I can
main
identify
idea.
the key details of the central idea
Yeah.
by adding to my circle map. Good job, Kim.
I like the key details, because otherwise they stick in every extraneous thing they can pull in.
Okay, while Megan's finishing that, we're gonna go to the last week, which is even shorter, because this is the week we have the test. And we already determined, so Monday, I think Monday should be the day where you like just teach the
Vocab.
vocab and read the text. Now, what do you do on science? Will you still have classes the day you have science map?
Yes.
Okay.
Again, it might be shortened for our first block because they're the ones who are taking the science map.
And sometimes me and Casey, whatever remaining time is, we do 50-50. Like if
Yeah.
only 2 hours are left, so it's 1 hour with me, 1 hour with him.
So then this week is an informational text and a poetry. Well, it says poetry and informational. Take out, let's just do Nature's Wonders. I don't know where I got Grand Canyon from. I'm sorry. Take out Grand Canyon.
Got it.
And let's just do Nature's Wonders. I had it as small group on there.
Mhm.
That is, because what they're doing is they're combining week 2 and week 3. But I think we need to hit poetry again before
Yeah.
they take the test on Wednesday.
Uh-huh.
So copy from the vocabulary learning target and put that on the 16th for Nature's Wonders, which is it's poetry and informational text. And then I think on Tuesday you hit elements of poetry again, because you only have 2 lessons that week. So Monday
so
you'll need to
after
teach the
science map.
vocabulary, read the poem, and then hit elements of poetry again. Get it one more time before they take that test on Wednesday.
I love poetry, but I agree, it's more
really-
abstract.
Yes.
And
And then
it's difficult for them.
Yes.
And when it comes to figurative language in there, and sometimes they mess up on even the line numbers.
And you could do something fun with figurative language later in the week if you needed to. I mean, I don't know. I'm just thinking for your like early finishers that you have, especially in your 3rd group.
Come up with an original, creative way to present this.
Mm-hmm.
A rap, a dance,
Yeah.
a song, a poster, something they want to do to present either the whole poem or part of the poem to other members of the class.
Are you good, Megan? Did you get that typed? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording.